Alright, so you guys are probably already sick of seeing my face after watching a 20-minute video of me just talking, but sorry. Welcome back to this channel. My name is Ben Hagen. I run a suicide awareness organization called BCH Suicide Awareness. I live near Issaquah, Washington, and I grew up in Issaquah, Washington. I recently made a video kind of covering why I run this suicide awareness organization, why it's important to me, and I honestly did not expect the overwhelming amount of support that I received from people who watched the video, from people who saw what I was putting out. There were so many people that messaged me to where I was just ecstatic and I wanted to make another video right away. And before I start, I just want to say thank you to everyone who donated on the fundraiser that I was running on Facebook. We actually hit the $200 goal that I set in one day. Like, I can't even explain how appreciative I am and how happy that makes me. All that money is going directly to the National Suicide Hotline, and I'm ecstatic. That's all I have to say. Like, I'm pretty speechless about that. It's awesome, and the kind messages that were sent to me were also very nice, and I really appreciate it. It gives me comfort, and it encourages me to know that people actually support what I'm doing and enjoyed the last video, and that it was actually something that they could relate to. Now, you're probably wondering what I'm going to be doing tonight. It is currently 10:40. I have school in the morning, but I want to talk to you guys some more. So what I'm going to be doing tonight is kind of going over depression, what it is, the different symptoms, the warning signs, and how to cope with it. Like I said in the last video, I do not have all the answers, and I most likely never will. So I've got my laptop right next to me, and I'm on a website called helpguide.org, depression. And honestly, guys, you could look this up yourself, but I'm going to be relating it to the experiences I've had with suicide, depression, and other types of mental health, and trying to explain like how I dealt with it and giving you a first-hand look into what that was like for me. So to start, what is depression? And what it says right here is that depression is a common and debilitating mood disorder. More than just sadness in response to life's struggles and setbacks, depression changes how you think, feel, and function in daily activities. And that could not be more true. In relation to my experiences with it, generally I'm a pretty happy person. I'm a pretty positive person. I'm never really down on myself. I don't really do that kind of stuff. I'm pretty positive, pretty optimistic. But when I was actually diagnosed with severe depression, it was to the point where like I weighed like 195 pounds, and then in the span of a month I dropped 20 of that. So I weighed 175, and it was noticeable. Like, people were asking, have you lost weight? You look slimmer. Have you lost weight? I was like, yeah, but not in a healthy way. I just wasn't eating. My appetite went away, and that's not me. I love to eat. And also, it changed my mood. Like, I was really outgoing. Like, that's my personality. I like talking to people, all that. But then I just suddenly hated crowds. Like, I did not like being around a bunch of people, which led to me missing a lot of school because I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to interact. Like, it really hit me hard, and it hit my mom hard too. She became like a recluse. She didn't want to go out either. Like, the only people she would talk to were me, my sister, my dad, like stuff like that. So it is definitely mood changing, and it screws with every aspect of your life. In terms of symptoms, there are 10 common symptoms listed here. Number 1 is feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. And I actually covered this a little bit in the last video. There are people that believe that it's not going to get better, and that, you know, they can't do anything about it, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And one thing I want to stress is that there always is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a reason to keep fighting. There's always a chance that you can come back from whatever you're dealing with. And I know it's hard to believe, especially if you're in the state of mind where you don't believe that at all, but the thing that helped me through that is just people constantly telling me like, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better. You're never gonna forget it, but you're gonna learn how to deal with it. The next one is loss of interest in daily activities. Again, not going to school, like not wanting to see people. I didn't even want to go to baseball. I played baseball for 14 years. It was like the best part of my life, and I didn't even want to do that. So, like I said, it screws with every aspect of your life. Number 3, appetite or weight changes. Already covered that. I lost 20 pounds in a month. I didn't want to eat. Food actually disgusted me. So, and every time I would try to eat, my stomach would reject it. I would go like 3 days without eating. I'd try to eat. I couldn't eat. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. So, appetite and weight changes, that is a very noticeable part of depression. It's a very noticeable symptom. That's why people nowadays ask me like, are you eating? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I just, that kind of stuck around with me. Like, I don't eat as much as I used to. Number 5, anger or irritability. I'm already pretty irritable as it is, but I got even more irritable. So everything that I've read so far on this website is totally relatable to what I dealt with. And I'm sure it's relatable to what some of you are dealing with if you are depressed or you have that, sense of being depressed. Yeah, like if my friends made a snarky comment or something like that, I would get super defensive really fast, and I'm not usually like that. Like, I'll think about it in my head and be like, man, that dude's a but if I'm really dealing with my depression and trying to move past it, and then something like that happens, I snap. Like, it's very, very hard to keep my emotions under control when I'm having like a very big spout of depression. Loss of energy is the 6th symptom that is listed, which is very true. Like, I was lazy all the time. Like, I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to, I didn't want to be active. I didn't want to even get out of bed. Like, getting out of bed was a chore. I just wanted to lay there and just be with myself and all that kind of stuff. And it sucked. It was lonely, which, not a good thing when you're dealing with depression. Number 7, self-loathing. So what this says is like strong feelings of worthlessness or guilt. So again, another thing I touched on yesterday when I made this previous video was like, people feel like they're not wanted, like they aren't worth anything, that they've done so many bad things to the point where like nobody wants them anymore. So taking their life is helping people. It's relieving them of the sense that they're a burden on their loved ones. And again, I cannot stress enough that it's not true. Your loved ones will always be there for you. And I said this yesterday, like, no parent should ever have to bury their child. Like, that is terrible to think about, and I don't want that to happen again, which is why I'm doing this. Number 8, reckless behavior. In my experience, it was me not going to school. Like, I totally gave up on high school. Number 9, concentration problems, which is also something very relatable because I didn't want to do my homework. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to have conversations with my family. It was a very difficult scenario because like I would find myself just daydreaming about the worst case scenarios and not concentrating on like maybe getting better or catching up on schoolwork. And again, that was very self-destructive. Unexplained aches and pains is the 10th one. I never really dealt with that, and I don't know if my mom did or if my birth mom did, but I mean, it makes sense because your body is kind of shutting down from all the stress, and if you're not eating, yeah, you're gonna have issues with that. Now on the website, we're gonna be talking about depression and suicide risk. Now there are 8 things listed here that kind of show as a warning signs to kind of tell if depression is leading to suicidal tendencies. Number 1 is the most obvious one, talking about harming or killing one's self. And when you hear someone talking about that in a serious tone, like not joking about it, which it shouldn't ever be joked about in the first place, but if you hear someone being serious about it, that's when it becomes very serious. Like, you need to talk to them, you need to, try to get answers out of them, try to get them to go to a trusted adult or seek care for what they're going through, because if you're talking about it, then more likely than not, you're going to try to carry that act out, and it's going to be devastating to loved ones and communities and stuff like that. The second one that's listed is expressing strong feelings of hopelessness or being trapped. So this is kind of like the the hopelessness part of the symptoms. So this is it plays hand in hand. Number 3, an unusual preoccupation with death or dying. So if somebody's so focused on death and how they would die and stuff like that, then that's a pretty significant sign that someone is planning on killing themselves. Now, I never talked about killing myself. My mom did, and I wish we'd have taken that more seriously. And I know my family members did, but I wish there was more that was done about it. Number 4, acting recklessly as if they have a death wish. This kind of goes back to self-destructive patterns, reckless behavior, stuff like that. Like, one example that's used here is speeding through red lights. So they basically just don't give a and they're gonna try to do everything they can to, maybe raise the risks of them getting seriously injured or worse, dying. Number 5, calling or visiting people to say goodbye. Now, this should be a pretty big red flag, because if your best friend says goodbye to you, that's like in a very somber way, like that should be you should be like, oh, hold up a minute, like what's going on? And like I said in the last video, I didn't know that some of my friends were going through what they went through. So if you can pick up on any of these warning signs, it's very important. That's a big one if somebody's talking to you about that. Number 6, getting affairs in order. So like giving away stuff and trying to right wrongs and all that kind of stuff, so that way they don't have any regrets going into what they're gonna do. Saying things like everyone would be better without me or I want out is the 7th one listed, and that is literally exactly word for word what my mom was saying. She said that she was the #1 failure in our family, and that she was a burden on us, and that she was holding us back from reaching our potential because she was dealing with all this. And again, not true at all. Like, if my mom were still here today, there would be a lot of other things that I could have accomplished, and it really destroyed our family for a little bit. So we definitely weren't better off without her. So nobody is going to be better off without you. If you're dealing with stuff, I'm talking directly to you. You're just gonna start someone else's suffering. Like, it doesn't go like that. It really doesn't. 8 is a sudden switch from being extremely depressed to acting calm and happy, so like mood swings. And just to clarify, this is not bipolar disorder, but it's kind of like someone being bipolar. And that just the mood swings, it's weird. Like, one day I would be just down in the dumps. I'd be like, I hate my life, everything sucks, why me, all this. And then the next day I'd be like, everything's fine, So if somebody's having mood swings and almost trying to hide it, then that's also a pretty big red flag. Now, it says on the website here, and I completely agree, it says, if you think a friend or family member is considering suicide, express your concern and seek help. They're gonna realize, oh my God, my friend just helped me, and they're gonna be grateful. Talking openly about depression and suicide can really save lives. If you don't hold back, if you actually express it and open up to somebody, it's, like I said in the last video, it's so important, and it helps. Once those floodgates open, so much stress off your shoulders is relieved, and you're finally able to trust someone and talk to someone, and that is such a big part of recovering. Now, there is different types of depression. I'm not going to touch on this as much because there's major depression, atypical depression, seasonal affective disorder. So Kind of what I have is a mix between major depression and seasonal affective depression, or affective disorder. And what I mean by that is like every year around the anniversary of my mom's passing, that's when I get depressed. So like about 2 months ago, I was really depressed. Like I was not having a good time. But in the summer, and this is due to different types of lighting, like, you know, it's brighter out, you're in a better mood. So I'd be in a better mood, but I'd still think about those things. So it never truly goes away, but I'm in a better mood when it's a different season, if that makes sense. There's people with major depression where it just doesn't go away. Like they're always down in the dumps, and that's why I say I'm a mix of it, because it never really goes away for me, but I'm able to keep it under control, except for the months of like January, February, March. Like those are the months where things get really dicey for me. Not all depression is one thing. There's a lot of different varieties. That's the word I was trying to use. Yeah, I speak English. We're going to talk about the risk factors here for a quick sec. So some of the risk factors listed are loneliness and isolation, lack of social support, family history of depression, financial strain, early childhood trauma or abuse, which if that has ever happened to anybody, I am so sorry. That is terrible, and I am so sorry that you had to deal with that. Unemployment or underemployment. My mother, unemployed, big factor in what happened to her. Health problems or chronic pain. So if you're feeling like, you know, if you're in pain all the time, aka chronic pain, it's kind of hard to deal with, I would assume, and you know, you kind of want to end the suffering. The cause of your depression actually helps determine treatment. So like if you're dealing with one thing, one type of treatment will be kind of advised for you. Now, not all treatments work for each type of depression. There's like light therapy and just plain out talking to somebody. Like different types of things help different types of people, because we're not all going through the same thing. Nobody goes through the same exact situation. Talking to somebody openly about it, like we've already touched on, helps people understand what needs to be done to treat you and get better. Now, to cope with depression, this is another section on the website. There's 4 things that I see listed. Reaching out to other people, which we've already touched on a lot. Get moving, which basically just involves exercise, like getting up and being active. It releases endorphins in your body, and endorphins kind of lift you up a little bit. That's why, like, when you get adrenaline, you feel a little more upbeat and energetic. Eat a mood boosting diet, and I've never tried this because I'm pretty unhealthy, to be honest, but there's different types of food that can affect your mood and your kind of outlook on things, and you know, makes sense. Science, you know, food dissolves, it's released into your body with different vitamins, so different vitamins react different ways. Find ways to engage again with the world. Now, my way of engaging again with the world was doing this. When I first started this, BCH, suicide awareness, actually kept me occupied to the point where I was like able to keep my mind off of what I was dealing with at the time, and now it's actually helping me do that again. So this is my way of engaging with the world. If there's another way that you find better suited for you, then do that. Like, don't just sit by yourself just boiling in your own thoughts and your own self-loathing. Like that is so terrible and lonely, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Go out and find ways to engage with the community and to make a positive difference in the world. There's different places to turn for help. The big one, in my opinion, is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I will leave a link to that in the description, because that is actually what I did a fundraiser for over the course of the past day. So that is a big one for me. I actually still have their card in my wallet, so I always have that number on me. There's also support groups and the NAMI helpline, which is spelled NAMI helpline. And there's also referrals at different numbers, but the big one is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys tonight. This was more of an informational video. The last video was more of a background on my story. So I really hope that this helped you out. But you know, again, I don't have all the answers, and there's other stuff you can look up. You can literally just type in depression facts, symptoms, how to cope with it. And you know, some of the stuff you would read on these websites might not work for you. There's different ways for different people to cope, and finding that way to cope with what you're going through is so important, because once you find that way to cope, then you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel more upbeat, more positive. And yeah, just like last video, I'm going to add a couple of announcements. So my friend Riley, who is actually a member of my other YouTube channel, which is more of a upbeat YouTube channel, he actually wants to be in a video with me. He dealt with some other types of mental health disorders, and like I said, yes, this is called BCH, Suicide Awareness, but I want to bring attention to all different types of mental health, and Riley is going to help out with getting me on track for that. He's going to sit in front of the camera with me. Him and I've sat in front of a camera before, so he's going to be good at it, and I'm excited to have him back. I actually spoke with Connor tonight. He is very excited. He watched the video and he is very excited to get back to work. We're going to start planning some stuff out, planning speaking events, getting back into that type of stuff, which we will keep you posted on. There will probably be like a Facebook flyer, Instagram stuff on my story, or that I actually post on my actual feed. I can't thank you guys enough for the overwhelming amount of support that has been given to me. When I first started this organization, there was a really good amount of support, but it almost feels like there's more now with the reboot. Like, more people have paid attention to it, I guess, and from what I've heard, like, everybody that watched the video actually watched all 20 minutes of it, and that, I can't thank you enough for that. Like, I know how boring it must be to watch me talk about very depressing things in my room late at night. Like, it is not fun. This is not like a normal YouTube thing. But I'm glad to be doing it. I'm glad that you guys support it, and it's very encouraging. So once again, thank you very much. I'll be back with another video soon. If the support continues, then I'll be back sooner than you might think. So again, thank you. I hope you have a great night or a great day whenever you're watching this. This will be uploaded probably at 2 o'clock in the morning again. Much love. You can do it. And remember, doing what's right isn't always what's easy. All right. Peace.